Hey there, I think it's day 21 now, and we're going to do day 21. So, fractal art. You find a program trying to generate some art. Use a strange process that involves repeatedly enhancing the detail of an image through a set of rules. The image consists of two-dimensional square grid pixels that are either on or off. The program always begins with this pattern, because the pattern is 3 wide and 3 tall. It's said to have a size of 3. Then the program begins the following process. If the size is evenly divisible by 2, break the pixels up into 2 by 2 squares and convert each 2 by 2 square into a 3 by 3 square, following the corresponding enhancement rule. Otherwise, the size is evenly divisible by 3, break the pixels up into 3 by 3 squares and convert each 3 by 3 square into a 4 by 4 square by following the corresponding enhancement rule. Because each square pixels is replaced by a larger one, the image gains pixels and size increases. The artist's book of enhancement rules is nearby. For it seems to be missing rules, the artist explains sometimes one must rotate or flip the input pattern to find a match. Never rotate or flip the output pattern, though. Each pattern is written concisely. Rows are listed as single units, ordered top down. Sorted by slashes. For example, the following rules correspond to the adjacent patterns. I see, I think. So rotating flip the pattern. All the following patterns match the same rule. Suppose the book contained the following 2 rules. For the program begins with this pattern. The size of the grid is not divisible by 2, but is divisible by 3. Divides evenly into a single square. The square matches the second rule, which produces that. The size of this is divisible by 2, so that rule is used. It divides evenly into 4 squares. Each of these matches the same rule, 3 of which require the output is the same in all 4 cases. Finally, the squares are joined into a new grid. Just thus, after 2 iterations, the grid contains 12 pixels that are on. To begin with, get your puzzle input. Okay. So, let's say that we'll represent a pattern like this. And this seems like it might be kind of a pain, but that's fine. Sometimes these things are. This day 21 fractals. Day 21 fractals.py. And let's get this thing. And for starters, let's get let's say test input equals that thing. And let's say parse, what are we calling these? Rules. So this one's for the pattern. It's called, those are patterns. Parse rule is a string. Parse rule, parse line is a string, and it is going to produce a tuple of, actually let me do from typing import named tuple, and then we're going to say a rule is a named tuple which has an input which is a string and an output which is a string, and those are both patterns. And so we parse a line into a rule, and we'll just say return rule of, actually let me do this, IO equals line dot strip dot split on this arrow, and we'll return the rule with input and output. I'll just say input equals I, output input equals O. Okay, so we can parse a line and test rules equals parse line for line in test input dot split new line, and let us run day21 fractals.py and test rules. That's good. And let's say def grid, and what do we call this? They're written concisely. So let's just call this concise, and it takes a grid, which is a list of strings, and it returns a string. And what is a concise representation? We are going to return /.join join row for row in grid. And so let's assert that concise of, let's say, point, pound, point, pound, and pound equals point. Okay, so let's run this. List is not defined. Okay, so that works. And then we went to unconcise s, which is a string. It's going to be a list of string, and I don't even know if I need all these things, but return let me just make sure this works. Oh yeah, okay. Return list of row for row in s dot split on slashes, and so let's just do this backwards. Assert that unconcise of that equals this thing. So that worked too. And now I want to find if a square matches the rule. So I'll just add that to rule. Def matches, and let's say a grid is a list of strings. I'm just going to return a bool. And so what I want to do is it's going to match if let me do a couple things now. Say grid equals list of strings so that I don't have to type it out every time. And I am going to have to go to the bathroom at some point, so that'll be interesting. Okay, so what do I want to do? We have this flipping and rotating thing, right? And flipping means just So that's a flip. That's a rotate. And that's a rotate too. Okay. So, right. Def flip grid, grid, and returns a grid. And I'm just gonna flip left to right, return list of reversed row for row in grid. That should be fine. And def rotate grid, grid goes to grid. And let's just say rotate by 90 degrees. And so what, how do I do that, right? How I do that is, let's say rotated equals deep copy of grid. From copy import deep copy. And so what do I want to do? I want to say 0, 0 goes to n0, and it's not really n, it's really n minus 1, but that's fine. You get the, no, I'll write it out. N minus 1, 0, n minus 1, 0 goes to n minus 1, n minus 1, n minus 1, n minus 1 goes to 0, n minus 1, and 0, n minus 1 goes to 0, 0. So what do I want to do? That means I want to take the x and stick it in y. So for I row in enumerate grid, for JC in enumerate row, and I want to say rotated. We've assumed these grids are squared now, so let's just say n equals len grid. So rotated, and now I want to do n minus j minus 1. So if j0 goes to n minus 1, and then I equals c, and then return rotated. So let me just do this. Assert rotate of, and I'll just use unconcise. Except I haven't defined unconcise yet, but that's fine. Pound dot dot pound slash dot 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 equals rotate unconcise of equals, so when I rotate that, I'm going to get this thing here, which is pound dash dash pounded to pound. So I think that's right. Let me try running that. Expected and indented block. Let's get rid of that. Name unconcise, not defined. That is true. So let me move these up to the top. Assertion error. Okay, so let's do this. And let's stick this one in the middle as well to see what it is. So I have this, and this, and then I turn it. So once I turn it, I've basically, did I rotate it in the wrong direction? Because if I did, that's probably okay. So basically this top row should be the last column. So let me see if I rotate this one, I get this one. This top, no. So I want each guy in, I want 0i to go to, let me do this. 0i goes, okay, I got this totally wrong, so let's try this again. I0 goes to n minus 1i. N minus 1, let me call this j actually, goes to n minus 1j, n minus 1j, he goes to the bottom row, which is n minus 1 minus j, n minus 1, and then whatever. So what I want to do is I want to again, I want my j to become my I, and I want n minus 1 minus I. So I think that's probably right. Okay, good. So that works, and I rotate it now. And so now I want to say this rule matches some grid, which is a grid, returns a bool, and so what I want to say is I want to say target equals, and this is just going to be pretty ugly, but target equals unconcise matches self grid unconcise self dot input. Okay, so that's this pattern that I want to match, but in fact targets, I can match one of a number of things. So return any grid equals let's say I'll call that rule. Grid equals target. For target in, and so I'm actually probably going to do too many here, but rule, rotate rule, rotate, rotate, rule, rotate, 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 rule, and I'm just going to call this rule 2 equals flip rule. And so as I understand this, I can match the rule, or I can flip it and match any of those. And so test rules, and so I want to say rule test rules 0 dot and what did I call it? Match of pound, or sorry, let's see if this works. So basically, we think this should match anything that has exactly 1 pound. And I didn't do the syntax right. Okay, I wonder how it matches. Seriously? Do I need to run the thing again? True. Okay, and now what if I do this? True. And then what if I do this? False. And then what if I do this? True. Okay, so that seems pretty good actually. And now what I need to do is I actually need to take a restroom break, so I'm just going to leave this running, and I'll be back real fast. Surprised it took until day 21 before that happened, but it happened. I drank a lot of Gatorade, and that's what happens when you drink a lot of Gatorade. Okay, so otherwise, each 3 with square to 4x4 square, find the following enhancement rule. Okay, and so what do I want to do? I need to first enhance a square. So enhance a square, which is a grid, and some rules, which is a list of rule, and it's going to return a new grid. And what is it going to do? For rule in rules, if rule dot matches the square, return rule dot output, and I think that's it. Otherwise, raise value error, no matching rule. Okay, so that's how we enhance a square. And now we need to process image, def process image. Image is a grid, and the rules is a list of rule, and it is going to return another grid. And so let's say n equals len of image. If n mod 2 equals 0, do something. Elif n mod 3 equals 0, do something. And then else raise value error image must be multiple of 2 or 3. Okay, so if the size easily break the pixels up into 2 by 2 squares and then convert each 2 by 2 square into a 3 by 3 square by following the following enhancement rule. And so what do I want to do? I probably want to call this segment an image, which is a grid, and it's going to return a list of grids, and I'm going to have the same if n mod 2 equals 0, we do 2 by 2 squares. So I want to return, and this is going to be kind of ugly, but so each row, and for I in range 0, n by 2, and then so I'm just going to go for each set of rows, and then I'm going to and then inside here I'm going to do for j in range 0 and 2, and now I need to do basically image I j, image I j plus 1. So let's think about this. Image I plus 1, j plus 1, image, no, sorry, this is image I plus 1, j, image I plus 1, j plus 1. So I hope I get all this nesting right. So this is my square, and then I'm going to return, a bunch of rows of squares and then a bunch of, so I think that's right. Elif n mod 3 equals 0, and this is going to be even uglier, 3 by 3 squares. Return image j in range 0 and 3, 0 and 3. So now I have to do image I j plus 2, and then similarly I have to do image I plus 1, j plus 2, and then close that row, and image I plus 2j, image I plus 2, j plus 1, and image I plus 2, j plus 2. And that's that row, and then I got to close the outside one too. So I think that's right. And then else raise value error bad size. My error messages are getting worse as I go on. So now what I want to do is I want to say segmented equals segment image. So get grid of grids, and then processed equals, and so what do I want to do? For row in segmented, and what I want to do is I want to do enhance square rules for square in row for row in segmented. So now okay, I don't like that that's in red. That means I screwed something up somewhere. And it probably means I forgot to close something. No, that's okay. Well, let's run it and see where it gives me a syntax error. For line 86. I forgot to close that grid, I guess. Maybe. Okay. So, those are two rules. As before, the program starts with this pattern. So let's say test pattern equals unconcise of, and this and I still need to join things together, huh? So test pattern. And so what did I call that function? I called it process image. Process image. Test pattern test rules. And did I not return anything? I did not return anything. Return processed. Okay, well, that doesn't look good. Actually, that does look good. Except, like, that looks great, except that I need to two things. After enhancing, I need to unconcise the rule.output. So let me try that again. So that looks good. And then what do I need to do? I need to glom them back together. So def, and this is not a grid, it's a list of grids. And similarly, yeah, so actually, no, I'll do a grid here. I need to glom things together. So I want to glom together some grids, which is a list of grid, and I just want to return a single grid. And so how do I want to do that? Let's say num grids equals len grids, which is not two, that's like one dimension. And then I want to do grid size equals len of grids 0, 0. And so let's say output grid equals none for something in range num. Let me just say range num grids times grid size, and then again for this in range num grids times grid size. So, you know, if they're 3 by 3 and I have 8 of them, that'll be 24 by 24. So that'll be good. So for I in len num in range num grids, for j in range num grids, this is probably not the most efficient way to do this, but so I'm just going to go for each grid, and then what do I want to do? For I in range grid size, for JJ in range grid size. Okay, so output grid. So what do I want to be? I want to be I times grid size plus II, j times grid size plus jj equals grids ij, ii, jj, and then return output grid. So I think that's right. And now I just want to return, I'm going to glom these together and run this. And now process image. Now what happens if I process that image? I get that thing, that thing, that thing, that thing. Thus, after 2 iterations, the grid contains 12 pixels that are on. And so def count pixels image, which is a grid, and that's going to be an int, and that's just going to be return length of, you know what, I'm not going to be clever, count equals 0 for row in grid, for C in row. If C equals that, then count plus equals 1, return count. And now let's write a test which says that assert that count pixels of, and we did 2 iterations, right? So let's say iter1 equals process image of test pattern test rules, and iter2 equals process image test pattern, or not test pattern, of iter1 test rules. And then we want to assert that count pixels of iter2 equals 12. So let me run that again. Process image. Okay, so I didn't spell it right. So that's bad. Name grid is not defined. That's right, because I call this image. Okay, good. So that works. So now, get my puzzle input. So let's save link as day 21 input.text. If name equals main with open day 21 input.text as f raw equals f.read.strip new lines, and how did I do the test rules? Rules equals parse line for line in raw.split.n. And I think we want to start with the same test pattern. Is that right? Pattern equals test pattern. And so we always start with that. For, in range 5, which is how many times we want to do it, pattern equals process image pattern rules, and then we want to print count pixels of pattern. So let's try that and see what happens. 162. So that is the right answer. Okay, cool. So part 2, how many pixels stand after 18 iterations? And so is the issue that this is going to be too slow, because it seemed like it was pretty slow. And it's going to make me do something more clever, because it's just not fast enough. 10, 11, 12. And I'm inclined to wait this out. While it's running, we can think about how we would make it go faster. But, well, maybe we need to think about it a little bit more. So what is slow about what we did? So checking is easy. Okay, well, we can, it's real easy. Print processed glom equals glom processed, print glommed, turn glommed. So let's see where it's spending its time. Processed, glommed, processed, glommed, processed. Okay, so processed is the slow part, not glommed, so that's fine. And so to process it, what are we doing? And let's print segmented. Okay, so again, the processed is, and in particular, the enhance is the slow part. So let's look at enhance and see how we can make it better. For rule and rules, if rule matches square, return unconcise rule outputs. So why is that taking so long? Because there's a lot of squares, is that right? Print len segmented. Okay, so what am I going to do? I am going to do the following. All this rotating is really stupid, right? So here's what I am going to do. Class, let me do this. And so I won't use matches. I'm going to do something else. Class rules. and I'm going to initialize it with self and rules, which is a list of rule objects. And I want to do the following. I want to say, what do I call it? Input, output, it's going to be a dict from string to grid, and it's going to be this, right? And so for rule and rules, let's say R1 equals rule dot inputs. R1 equals unconcise rule dot inputs. R2 equals flip R1. And then what I want to do is I want to say O equals rule dot output. And I'm going to do the following. Input, output, let me do rule 1, rule 2 equals flip rule 1, and I'm going to copy this. So for each of these, I am just going to say that input, and I'm going to do self.input output, self.input output of concise target equals O. Okay, so that's, and it's actually going to be unconcise output. Okay, and so that's it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say def say get self and a grid, which is a grid, and it's going to also return a grid, is I'm going to say a key equals concise grid, and return self.input output key. Okay, so that should be better, I think. And so now I'm going to change this up and say test rules equals rule rules this, and rules, and now I just want to return rules dot get square. So I'll do that, and again, rules will be rules, and we just pass those through. Count pixels, that's fine. So that's good, and just had 5. So rules. Try this and see if it even works. Invalid syntax line 82. For target in, so there's no parentheses here. Let's try this again. String objects does not support item assignment. So let's see, that's line 36. So that's rotating a grid. Rule equals unconcise. Rule 2 equals flip rule. Rotate rule. String object does not support item assignment. So I am just going to comment out this entire function because we don't need it anymore. And let me see. 36. Oh, print grid. So what grid? And why is it printing? So somehow, oh, this should be rule 1, rule 1, rule 1, rule 1. So that's part of the problem. And it said 162, which I think was what we agreed was the right answer. So now 18 iterations. Let's see if it goes any faster this time. That definitely is faster. So I hope it's the right answer. That's the right answer. Okay, so another one where the first way is slow and we have to be clever and be a little bit faster. And how long did that take? That took almost an hour, which is longer than I wanted to spend on it, but that includes my little impromptu bathroom break. So find me on Twitter at JoelGrus, and thanks for watching, as always. And 21, so there's only like 22, 23, 24 left. Cool. Well, this was a good one.